The country level page of the fossil fuel registry has a graph which shows the past few years' actual emissions and then projects forward as to what emissions could be in the future based on the range of data available in public domain. There are multiple sources for production in the past, and by clicking on any of these sources, you get those sources represented in this block here. One thing to notice is that this y-axis on the left is expressed in terms of millions of tons of CO2 equivalent emissions, not in the actual volumes of oil and gas produced, so that we can say that as of the latest data, Denmark's production was responsible for roughly 25 million tons of CO2e per year. Now, moving forward, of course, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but we have the government's reserves figure here from the Danish Energy Agency, and then we have three different ways of plotting that reserves figure onto future production paths. So the first one, which we see here, shows declining oil and gas production simply based on what's happened in the past 10 years. You see this curve going down here. The second one takes the rather simplistic assumption that production might continue at exactly the same level as it did at the last point for which we had data. And here you can see the more production ending sooner. But this bold line here is the Danish government's own prediction of future production. And if we press that, we can now map the reserves figures from the Danish government to their own estimate of how that's going to play out in future production. A key thing to notice here is the division of the future into two stages. This block here is for future oil and gas emissions against current proven reserves, and then this further block here is against current contingent resources, which is the next category down of discovered oil and gas resources. And what we can tell from that is that under the production estimate from the government, the current proven reserves, if they were not refreshed or renewed at all, would run out for oil in about 2028 and for gas in around 2030. But this is the significance of the contingent resources, which have already been discovered but not yet converted into reserves, because we can see when we add those, which are also official figures in the second category, then production of both oil and gas goes through to the late 2030s. So you achieve a longer production profile and, of course, with it, more emissions.